your 20s are a time where you have the least ability to save and get the biggest benefit from saving because of compounding. So it's really critical to increase your income as fast as you can, minimize your debt as fast as you can, grow that gap, make that gap from income to debt, and then save first.
In general, with the Roth IRA, even starting at 20, just maxing that out, that's already a head start. I have a brother-in-law who's an accountant, and he jokes around, which is not a joke, but he's literally like, this is just the greatest financial gift that we've ever been given is a Roth IRA, because you can just max it out, don't touch it, and then I think it was 65, something like that. You pull it out tax-free.
Welcome to Catching Up to FI, a podcast on mindset, money, and life for late starters of any age on their journey to financial independence. I'm Bill, and I'm a late starter.
I'm Jackie, and I'm also a late starter, and we're your host. We're here to help you on your journey to financial independence, no matter where you're starting.
We're going to talk to experts, other late starters, and explore topics related to our mission.
Join us as we catch up to FI together.
All right. Hello and welcome back to Catching Up to FI. I'm Bill Yount, my co-host Jackie Cummins-Koski, coming to you live from Knoxville, Tennessee and Dayton, Ohio. And we have a special treat for you today. I don't think this has been done in the podcast world, Jackie. We're going to talk to students and their teacher for Financial Literacy Month about the 20 questions that 20-somethings have. So if you could go back and give your 20-year-old self one piece of money advice, what would it be? Most of us have thought at some point, I wish I'd figured out money sooner. And for late starters, that question carries a lot of weight. It also carries a lot of weight for their kids.
Yeah, that is exactly right. And we were so moved after we visited the University of Tennessee and Dr. Karen DeLong's class that we were like, you know what? Why don't we invite you guys on the podcast? So this is going to be so much fun today. Like you said, it's never been done before, but the students were up to it. Dr. DeLong was up to it. So today we're going to dive into real questions with two college students and their passionate professor that, whether they realize it or not, is altering the course of their lives.
Today we have with us Karen, who grew up in a fifth-generation family farm in Michigan, founded in 1876. She and her husband Trey live with us in Knoxville. Go Vols! They're playing Iowa State tonight. We have some conflict going on there today. And she lives there with her two adorable children, Kaylee and Jack.
Yeah, so Karen is extraordinary. I've known her for several years, and I know her aunt as well. But she is a professor of excellence at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville, and she's in the Department of Agriculture and Resource Economics. So she has a PhD in Business Administration. She has a Master's of Science in Agriculture, Food, and Resource Economics, and she has a Bachelor of Science degree in Mathematics and Economics. So she has done all kinds of stuff. So she has authored 70 peer-reviewed academic journal articles. She's been honored with multiple teaching awards, and she has received over $4 million in grant funding. So she knows how to get money to support the work that she does.
So basically, she's hot stuff. She loves the balls, and she has a mean jump shot herself.
That's true.
She does. She's got a mean jump shot. She was an athlete. So Karen, you were an athlete, right?
Yes, I played basketball, volleyball, and softball in high school. I was not a lady balls. I was balls player. I was not that good, but I did play sports in high school and a little bit at a community college.
Yeah, we knew you. We see all those pictures in your classroom. So the reason why we brought her and the students on the show today is because Karen is passionate about helping her students prepare for life in the real world as they go about and enter into the workforce. So for the last 6 years, she has invited me and some other colleagues of mine to teach a one-day crash course in personal finance. So for the last 2 years, I've been privileged, and also Bill has been privileged to come in person and talk to the class. It's really a structured conversation to introduce some critical personal finance concepts and principles, but it goes a long way, and we always hope that we can do a halfway adequate job of really kind of getting to the students' questions and what they're interested in. So Bill, we've got the two students. Let's go ahead and introduce them as well. You know what? Let's chat with them and have them introduce themselves a little bit. So who do you want to start with?
first. Let's go with Emmy. Emmy, tell us a little bit about yourself, and thank you for joining us today on your very first podcast.
So my name is Emmy. I'm from Des Moines, Iowa. So Iowa State Vols game, win-win for me. I am a finance major with a collateral in international business, so I'll be going abroad for that soon. And then a minor in agricultural business, which is in the AREC department with Karen. I'm really passionate about fighting addiction, especially in teens and youth. And I was very involved in that back home in Iowa. And I'm really hoping to stay involved with that as I continue through my education at Tennessee. I'm graduating soon, a year and a half, but outside of school and my own self, I love crafting and crocheting and reading and just getting together with my friends and doing all those things.
Now, Karen told us that you were really smart and you recently got the best grade on a very important exam. So we want to shout you out for that. I wouldn't say that you're the teacher's favorite, but teachers definitely love students that can ace an exam. So congrats on that.
Thank you.
All my students are my favorite.
They're all your favorite. Right.
It's easy to grade papers when everything's all right, though. I will give her that.
All right. We also have Britton to represent the guys in the class. We had to have both genders involved. Britton, tell us a little bit about yourself. You're a homeboy here in Knoxville. Tell us about your background.
Yeah, yes, sir. I've been born and raised here in Tennessee. My name is Britton. I'm an agricultural business major with a concentration in finance. I love it. That's part of the reason why I'm at the ag college, is because you can have a degree so diverse. Ag really ties me back to my roots while I'm really interested in finance. When I'm not in school, I love to hunt and fish. It's what I'm very passionate about. I just love to be outdoors, anything outdoors. I love it. For work right now, I currently have started my own LLC where I've started an off-market real estate investing firm where I help distressed sellers find a buyer and I kind of connect them. I'm a middleman. I really enjoy it. It's kind of fun. Keeps me busy. And when I'm not doing that, I work for a local brokerage here in town where I help out with some real estate auctions. And then when I'm not doing that, I love volunteering. I volunteer for a young organization called Young Life where I help high school kids kind of grow in their faith and they're walking their own faith. And it's probably the best part of my week. I love it.
Oh, that's awesome. Look at these guys. I was not nearly as busy as these guys back in college.
So impressed. I
don't know where they find the time. And we got some entrepreneurs here, and they obviously have an interest in money. But I think one thing Jackie wants to know is, and we can go to all three of you, Karen, Emmy, and Britton, did you have personal finance classes in high school? And then we're going to take it even further back than that, because there's a personal family side to this, and then there's the formal education side. Tell us a little bit about your experience with money growing up and in high school.
Let's start with Emily on that one. Now, Emily, you grew up in Iowa, is that right?
Yes.
So I don't even know if they require personal finance, but did you have a personal finance class in high school?
Yes, it's required to graduate. So you take it either your junior or senior year of high school.
And here's a really important question. Was it helpful? How helpful was it?
That was my question.
No, it was an online class and it was very quick. And I'm sure it could have been a little bit informative, but it wasn't particularly helpful with how to save for big life decisions or for retirement or things like that.
So you had online modules and you did not have an actual teacher teaching it to you?
I think there's an option for both, but the course I took was online.
Okay. What about you, Britton?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's required in the state of Tennessee to graduate. I'm like 99% sure it is.
It is.
But to be honest, anytime I walk into that class, I knew I was about to just mess around and not take anything seriously. So I think that kind of just sums up how the class was taught. You don't really learn that much. I mean, you might learn some terms, but that's about it. Not much of an actual personal finance learning there.
That's a little sad. And let's go back in time a little bit. Karen, what about you? Back in the day, did you have class? Now you went into business later on, but if you didn't have a class, what was your money story? What did you learn about it growing up?
Did you say we had to go back in time? I'm not that old.
I know.
I did not have a personal finance class in high school. I do not believe it was required. Now, in college, I did teach a little bit about personal finance. I actually was an undergraduate teacher assistant at my junior and senior year of my undergraduate math degree at Western Michigan University. And the professor, it was for liberal arts students. It was the math requirement for liberal arts students. So I didn't take the class, but I taught a section of it. And we did talk about amortization schedules and mortgages and how much interest you would pay based on different interest rates that you'd get charged for a mortgage. But it really didn't resonate that much with me because I didn't really know what a mortgage was, or I didn't think about the fact that I was going to need one someday. So I think even with what Emmy and Britton said, it's hard to get connected with a topic if you're so far away from needing to use what you're learning. And so even though I was teaching the concept, I could teach what compound interest was and interest rates and how the amortization schedule worked, but it still didn't resonate that much with me. But I didn't have any personal finance actually as any of the classes that I took from kindergarten through getting my PhD. I didn't have one in personal finance.
Wow.
What I'm hearing from all of you is that there's some vocabulary and there's some math, but there's absolutely no mindset, which is the critical piece to this, because I think it's 80% mindset. And that might come from your parents. Karen, you grew up on a farm, and your parents, they invested in land, but if I remember correctly, they didn't do anything with personal finance and math and money and investing.
Crops and commodities and land. So they actually had a very diversified portfolio, but it's not what corporate Americans are doing when they're off working in a city. They're not getting retirement accounts, etc. So it'd be unconventional, I would say. So when I went off the farm and came here as a professor, I was offered retirement benefits with my job here. And I didn't know anything about them because I was exposed to the finances of a farm and what my parents did for their business. Farmers are really small business owners if they're small family farms, or large business owners. And so I understood finance from a perspective of a business, but I had no idea what like 401ks were or anything like that. But I will say my family was always very open about talking about finance and numbers. And I remember being in middle school and my dad would take me into his office and explain to me how much money the government was taking from my paycheck on the farm, because I was actually a payrolled employee on our farm. And he'd go through and show me how he had to take taxes out of my paycheck. I was very exposed to economics, math, finance. And my family was always very open to talking about those concepts. But I did not know anything about investing in the stock market or 401ks or anything like that.
Okay, let's go to Emmy too. There's always a family story. Obviously, you're interested in money. How did your parents handle it? Did they talk about it because it's so taboo? Where'd you find your interest?
So both of my parents actually work in business. They both worked in insurance for a long time. And one of my parents is actually retired now. And the other one, she now works in compliance for a broker dealer. So growing up, I was surrounded by business and finance relatively. But I would say about money, both my parents do invest. They have a good portfolio, but I don't know quite exactly what it is. It's not something that we really share together. But if I have a particular question, sometimes they're willing to share that information. But definitely, since they're still helping me a little bit with school and things, we don't really talk specific numbers. I don't think they're comfortable with that.
So, Britton, what about you? Like, what was your, I guess, home life like in terms of money? Did you talk about it? Was it taboo? Is there anything that stuck with you?
Yeah, growing up, I can always remember we didn't really talk about it very much. It was very kind of closed off subject, but also I know my parents, it's kind of been, ever since I've been old enough to kind of pay attention to that, they've been very aggressive savers. And I think that is because they did get a little bit of a later start just in saving and investing. And so I've been getting to see that. And so it's been kind of neat as I've started to get into it to be able to talk to them about what they've been doing and kind of what they've learned, because they kind of got started late in a sense of just really once they started saving aggressively for retirement and things like that. So it's been kind of getting neat to get to see that, but we really don't talk about straight numbers, more just mindsets.
Okay. So when they said they got a late start, did they share that with you, or you just observe that they are trying to save more aggressively because they know they weren't able to do it, let's say, right out of college?
Yeah, a little bit of both. Higher education starting out, there's not much money in that. I mean, just truthfully, just naturally, they just kind of had to get a later start, just really saving and really investing. But they've been super helpful along the journey, definitely.
So I have a question for both of you, actually, because obviously the academic side of money didn't resonate with you, and you both found interest. Did you either of you have jobs in high school or prior to going to college or during college? Did that help with interest in money and learning how to deal with a paycheck? And what did you do with it if you had a paycheck? Emmy, why don't you go first?
So I was a multi-sport athlete in high school. I did cheer, tennis, and wrestling. So I did not have a lot of time to have a job, and that wasn't something my parents particularly wanted me to go use my time for. But I did get a job before I left for college, and I wouldn't say it taught me a lot about finance, but it did teach me a lot about how I was spending my money before I had a job, and really how much 1 hour of work is worth.
Interesting. And Britton, did you have any experience there? Obviously, you're out of the gates with real estate now, so you've got a couple jobs. But what was it like for you in high school? Did you have a paycheck? Did that teach you anything?
Yeah, so my parents always encouraged me to work ever since I was 15. I had my first job. I was running like a forklift at like a mom and pop hardware store. And so I've always kind of learned how to work. And I really got interested in personal finance when I turned 16. It was like a month in and I wrecked my truck. And I remember I had all my money I saved. I had to use it to fix it. So after that, I was like fixated on like, okay, how can I get more money? How can I save it? How can I be more prepared? And so really ever since then, I've always had a job and been working and trying to have some sort of income coming in.
You both talk about spending. I have to ask a critical question. Do either of you have a Roth IRA?
Or save in any other way? Do you save in any other way, like even a savings account or something? Britton, we'll let you take that one first.
Yeah, I started a Roth this year. And so I've started putting money into that, and I'll try to max that out this year. And then I also have a personal investing account.
So my question always is like, how did you know to set up a Roth? Bill asked you that question without like asking you if you even knew what a Roth was, and who taught you about that? How did you know to start a Roth IRA?
Honestly, just my parents. I mean, they kind of just told me that you should start one. And so I don't know, I actually don't even think they know I started one this year, but I've started one this year. And so just listening to them, when they tell me to do something, I listen.
Yeah, and they'd be very proud of you, I could tell you that. So, Emmy, so you don't have a Roth currently, but are you saving in any other way? Like, for instance, when you get your paycheck, does your expenses eat up all of that, or are you able to save anything at this point?
I do have a savings account. It's just a normal savings account for my bank. And I was trying to save pretty aggressively in the summer when I didn't have as many expenses. So I was putting most of my paychecks into my saving, but I don't have any sort of investment or Roth IRA.
Gotcha.
Okay, there's no judgment here. Obviously, it's very different.
We
Different
are learning. I'm so glad to hear from you guys.
with school and with home. And I'm very impressed with both of you, actually, because you're conscious of money, you're aware of it, you're not just spending all of it. And I was paycheck to paycheck, and I didn't save much, and I spent first. And flipping the equation and learning to save first is a huge mindset shift. And you guys have already made that. So very impressed. But today we want to talk about your questions, because prior to that exam, you had a bonus question on the test. And we wanted to make it anonymous. What was the question you asked, and how did the students respond to this? I assume they wanted the points for the test.
Yeah, let's go ahead and start with Emily.
So a big question I had was, I know retirement is really important, but how do I invest for things prior to retirement and like the intermediate phase of my life?
All right, Jackie, you're the CFP. This is actually a very tough question because it speaks to the time value of money and the fact that there's short-term savings, there's intermediate savings, and then there's that future savings for our future selves that we all got to do. And this one, it's a very intelligent question because people don't often think about it. Jackie, what would be your answer?
Yeah, I think we do talk probably way too much about the retirement piece, which is important. But when you guys are as young as you are, you're thinking about things like, okay, what if I graduate and I can't find a job right away, or a job that's paying the money that I think I should be earning? That could go on for years. So do you have a nice cushion for that? Or for a lot of people, a down payment on a house, which, you know, these days seems almost impossible. So for that, I would say if it's going to be 4 years or more, it's probably okay to invest in stocks and maybe in what's called just a regular brokerage account. So you can go to something like, Fidelity or Schwab, and you can own stocks, and you might want something that's a little safer. Keeping a portion of it, like you're doing, Emily, into a regular savings account is totally fine, because here's what you don't want to happen. Let's say you need that 3 years from now. It's in the stock market, and the stock market goes down like it has been so far this year. So you don't want to get stuck in the position where you need the money and the market's down and you have to try to sell when those stocks are down. So a good safe spot, if you need it, I would say within 1 to 3 years, is probably just a savings account. Right now, there's high yield savings accounts that actually pay. Those would be the things to look at. If you got more than 5 years, let's say 5 to 10 years, maybe some of it would be in stocks, but you want to create the opportunity to be able to get that money out whenever you want and not feel stuck that the market's down, because the stock market is very, very volatile. So those would be some areas to think about. The places you don't want it is in a retirement account that's locked up until you're 59 and a half. There's some ways to get it out, but it's not designed for that. So you have your retirement money, that's for super long term. You've got your midterm, that would be the things that I mentioned. And then you have your emergency fund type of stuff, like a savings account. So that is kind of where you would look there. Just be careful about locking up your money too much when you know you're going to need it in the next few years.
Karen, this is a good question from one of your students.
Yeah.
I'm interested in your answer, actually, before I give my own.
I think Jackie did a really good job answering it. You can get about 3.5% interest in a high yielding savings account right now. And so you want to be able to put your money where you can at least keep up with inflation. So that gets you pretty close. So that's a nice option right now. Just 10 years ago, you couldn't get any interest for anything. And so a good use of your money too, we haven't talked about this, is paying down debt. So that's really one of your best risk-free options, is if you do have debt and it's greater than the 3.5% you can get in a high yield savings account, pay down debt. Paying down debt comes with a lot of benefits because you also don't pay taxes on paying down debt. So if I were to have an investment and put some of my short-term money in a stock brokerage account, I'm going to have to pay capital gains when I sell that. So I might make a 5% on it or more lately until this year. But then you're going to have to pay taxes on the amount that you made money on. So they take taxes all the time. Even the interest that you get on your savings account, you're supposed to declare with the IRS, and you have to pay taxes on it. So paying down debt, you don't have to pay taxes on that. And it's really nice not to have that. So that's another thing you can do with your money. And that's what I used to do 10 years ago, because you couldn't get any interest in a savings account because interest rates were so low. So paying down debt's always a good option. And a lot of savings usually have some of that.
And I'd say that's even a better answer than mine. And to the students, and Bill, I think we always have to deal with this, is just that there's a lot of new concepts that might be thrown out that you're hearing for the first time. And so you're already started out being a lifelong learner. So if you continue being a lifelong learner, always be willing to check on words that you might not understand, or if there's concepts that we threw out. When you start to put the pieces together, it will make more sense. So when we're talking about some of this stuff, it may be the first time you hear it, but probably not the last time.
Yeah, I agree with both of you, but I have a little bit of a different perspective, because your question begs the answer of what is the age of money? What is short-term money? What is intermediate-term money? What is long-term money? And money that you need in the short term, say 1 to 3 years, that really belongs in a high-yield savings account. You're in a brick-and-mortar bank. Do you even know what the interest is that you're getting on that money there? Probably not.
Very low.
Yeah, it's like 0.1%. It's nothing. Okay, so that's a place for your checking account, the money that's going in and out. And the money that you're saving needs to bounce through your checking account automatically into your other accounts and your other versions of saving, and try and automate it. So 1 to 3 years, high yield savings accounts, 3 to 5 years, maybe a CD. People don't talk about that, but if the interest rates are high, you can put it in as a safe investment. There are ways you can organize your investments in sort of a diversified portfolio of stocks, bonds, and alternatives where the risk is less than just in the stock market. Because the stock market, basically, you'll never lose money at 20 years, and you could potentially have a bit of a downturn and see a 90% chance of not losing money at 10 years. But stock market money is 7 years to beyond. You got to be a little careful with that because of the volatility and the risk. So there's different ways to do it. It's an important question because once you have your emergency fund that takes care of your short-term needs so that if a tire blows, you're not going on your credit card and incurring debt to pay for that. Make sure you protect your short-term needs with, say, 1 to 3 months of living expenses so that, and you can survive job loss. That's really your first priority. And then at that point, as Karen said, paying off credit cards becomes a high priority because the interest is 25, 30%, and that's a guaranteed return. Don't get caught in the debt trap if you can avoid it.
Don't ever borrow on your credit card. First, just don't do that.
Yeah, and if you are going to use your credit card, you can certainly pay it off by the due date and you won't owe any interest. So I always like to make the distinction is that just because you're using a credit card, that does not equal debt. If you pay it off every month, like I think we all do, Aaron and Bill, but obviously if you don't pay it off at the end of the month, you will pay the interest. So there's a difference. Now, Karen, since you mentioned debt, I did want to ask the students about how you guys are covering college. So is your parents covering college for you? Are they making you pay for anything? How are you guys have any student loan debts or anything like that? Emily, let's take you first.
So my parents are taking on my debt for me up until a certain amount. So by the time I graduate, I'll have probably around 50 to 75,000 in student debt.
All right. It's a hybrid plan. You've got skin in the game, so you know that your education has value. That's good. And that debt is going to become an important part of your initial financial life. And it's going to be really important to learn how best to pay that off. That's like a tax that's going to increase your income and increase your lifetime income. So it's actually one of those things that we would call good debt. And that was one of the questions that was asked too. So good for you that you know, good for you that you have skin in the game. And then it's going to be important to increase your income. So that's not a big portion of your income and you're able to save too. Now, Britton, tell us about your debt and how your approach to colleges with your parents.
Yeah, I've actually been very fortunate. My parents, one of the things that they wanted us to have is to graduate college debt free. So that's definitely something I'm trying to take advantage of right now and really reinvest anything that I make.
Oh, that's great. That's a great gift, isn't it? The debt-free start.
Yes. Yeah, it's definitely been a blessing.
And since your dad works for the school, does that mean that your tuition is covered?
Not covered, but it's state employees get 50% off. So that's a great gift that the state of Tennessee has. Yes.
That's a great hack right there.
Emily is an out-of-state student, which makes a big difference. In-state is another thing. And my advice to students these days is try and get your degree at the lowest cost possible, the lowest debt possible, because that just gives you a jump start on all these things. There's no harm, no foul. But if you're thinking about it in high school, we're asking 16, 17, 18-year-olds to make a huge decision that really needs to get made with their parents. And you can't be unconscious of what you're taking on exiting into the workforce. So prospectively, the fact that you guys know how much debt you have and how you're going to pay it off and how lucky you are if you don't, I'm really impressed because we tend to be in the United States unconscious to debt. We are a debt-based society. You become anesthetic to it, numb to it. This is how everybody lives their life. But I think Karen paid off her house because she is debt averse, right?
It's not paid off quite yet, but it's close. But I was similar. I was very fortunate because my parents, even though only source of income was my dad being a farmer, this might blow people's minds. My parents never went on vacation. I was never on an airplane until I went on one when I was a junior in high school. And they did all of that so they could pay for their kids to go to college because they believe that education is that important. And so I super lucky there.
Well, let me tell you what I love. I love that you guys are conscientious about how your college is being paid for and things like that. And so just to know like how that's being handled, because I know that there's some students that are like, yeah, I think my parents are paying for it. It's like, yeah, somebody's paying for it, right? So at least you guys know that. I love that. So Britton, you had a question. Why don't you shoot it at us and we'll workshop that too.
Yeah. So if I only did 3 things financially right in my 20s, what should those 3 things be?
Oh, that's so good, Bill. I'm going to let you go first.
All right. So this is a challenge because I think wealth is a team sport. And your 20s are a time where you have the least ability to save and that get the biggest benefit from saving because of compounding. So it's really critical to increase your income as fast as you can, minimize your debt as fast as you can, grow that gap, make that gap from income to debt, and then save first. So the number one thing I would say is save first, spend last, try and save at least 5% of your income. If you're a starting job, my kids in the 50,000 range, okay? So they can save 5%. Try and escalate that as quickly as possible to 15% if you can, or 20, where it gets comfortable. So escalate your savings rate, which is an important number to know, because that is the biggest lever you have to pull for long-term investing, which is what we all are, because money doubles every 7 to 10 years. And the more you save early, the less you have to save, because it will do all the work, and you'll be retiring early if you get these things right. That may be more than 3. Jackie, what do you think?
Well, I'm going to let Karen go first. Karen, I guess like 1 or 2. And Bill, I just want to acknowledge all the things that you said. They would be near the top of my list. Karen, did you have anything?
I'm going to add something.
Yeah, when your students come to you, what do you tell them?
So I'm a professor. I love college kids, and I love giving them some advice. So this is one of those outside the box things that I'm going to add. In their 20s, you might end up getting married. So marrying the right person is one of the best things you can do, because divorce is the most financially devastating thing that can happen to somebody. And it's becoming more devastating financially because the cost of a house, somewhere to live, even if you're renting, that is now the highest it's been, definitely in my lifetime, probably in Bill and Jackie's lifetime. The cost of shelter is the highest it's ever been. So if you get divorced, just owning 2 homes is just financially devastating, especially if you have a family. So marry the right person. That's my fun outside of the box financial advice.
I completely agree with that, because that is a brilliant decision. Should you be interested in partnership or marriage, it's a business, and people take it very emotionally. And this was one of the questions we had in your class from a woman, very astute, because people are delaying marriage. They're garnering assets in their 20s. And you can come into marriage with $300,000 of debt and no assets, or $100,000 of assets, and you've got to talk about money before you get married. It is critical, because you're in it together. You're going to own their debt. They may own your assets, unless you sort of partition that because you made those decisions beforehand. So it is probably one of the biggest financial decisions you're going to make. People don't look at it that way. I mean, it's not the first thing you should think about, but it's definitely a conversation, along with sex, religion, and kids, that you've got to have before you get married. So good for you, Karen.
Yeah, and not even divorce is a bad thing financially, but even finding the right partner that you are on the same financial wavelength with is important, to talk about money before you get married. And I think that's one of the strongest parts in my marriage is my husband is really smart financially, and that's one of our favorite, like, that's our hobby, is investing together, and we're really good at making financial decisions together. So that's something like we didn't think about when we were dating, but it's probably something that served our marriage the best, is the fact that we're on that same financial wavelength.
And Jackie, what about you? The 20s, what were the decisions?
Yeah, I was about to say, well, I'm divorced, so yeah. However, I want to say this. So when you're in your 20s and you're in college, I think it's easy for us to look back and say, I chose the right partner. But when you're so young, sometimes we just really don't have the skills or the experience or the good examples where we chose the right partner. So if that happens, and let's say you do end up getting a divorce, I always like to point to financial independence, not just from your parents, but to be able to support yourself. When you're coming together in a marriage, you're choosing that this is the person that you want to make all these financial decisions with. And at minimum, if things don't work out, then are you able to rely on yourself? And I had to learn that the hard way. I was able to somewhat because I was a working mom, but I had to learn a whole lot really quick. So just keep that in mind. Some people will say marriage was the worst decision. Some people say the best decision when it comes to finances. And if you can find that right partner, that does go a long way. Bill, I just want to just kind of double down on what you said about understanding the savings and how important that is. So when you're so young, the answer always is, I don't have any money to save. I am trying to pay my bills. I need to pay these student loans. So 5% would be great, but even if you don't have that, I started saving $2 bills from the time I was in high school and didn't realize that that was the first lesson I learned about saving. And it wasn't the amount, it was that I was building that muscle. I was building up that skill. So when I did make more money, I saved more money and I didn't have to work on creating that habit. So creating the habit of compound growth and saving and knowing how powerful compound growth is. I use that example of if you invest $50 a week, every week for 40 years, that, and you got put it in the stock market, just an S&P 500 index fund, which is the 500 largest US companies, it will grow to $1 million over the course of 40 years. And then I show you how you can slash that in half. But to me, savings is one of the most important things. And I guess the other one, especially for young people, is understanding how credit works. Because being so young and you're just starting out, you're not going to be able to afford everything in cash. Even though that's the advice some people say, you cannot do that when you're in your 20s. You're going to have to probably get a loan to get a car. You got student loans and then a loan to get a house. So understand that the most important part is if you're paying your bills on time, make sure you're doing that right and you keep really strong credit. So those would be some of the things. So you got more than 3 things, Britton, but those are just some of the things that we've learned from experience and things like that. They can be very simple. And again, if some of this is the first time you've heard it, you will hear it again and again, and it will start to make sense on why those are so important to you.
Yeah, one more thing I would add is you have a lot of savings vehicles and it can be overwhelming. And what do I do first? It's an order of operations. And you've already got a Roth IRA, which is great. You're in lower income years. It goes in post-tax, it grows tax-free, it comes out tax-free. That is a very powerful account. And when you're in your low income years, that is the one you want to dig into first and try and max out. You're doing the right thing. And as your income grows, you want to make sure in your 401k you get the match, because there's free money there that if you don't put in, say, 5%, 3%, 5%, 7%, you're losing out on part of your salary. And you got to make sure you're trying to hit that button as well. And then there's other ways you can do it, like with a taxable brokerage, say you can do it. And it's called the tax triangle, because money in the 401k goes in pre-tax, grows tax-free, and comes out taxed. Money in the brokerage goes in taxed, grows with taxes along the way, but it's not as bad as people think, and then is taxed when you sell it certain ways. If you can try and save in all 3 of those counts in a balanced way, as soon as your income grows large enough, you'll set yourself up for success. And then real estate, that's a whole nother ball of wax.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to turn the tables on you, Britton. So I want to know from you, is there 1 or 2 things that you think you're getting a head start on, that you think you're doing right financially?
I do. I definitely think just in general with the Roth IRA, even starting at 20, just maxing that out, that's already a head start. I have a brother-in-law who's an accountant, and he jokes around, which is not a joke, but he's literally like, this is just the greatest financial gift that we've ever been given is a Roth IRA, because you can just max it out, don't touch it, and then I think it was 65, something like that. You pull it out tax-free. And so I think that's great. And then 2, I think when you do start young with investing, it's really teaching me the value of like, hey, you're putting this money away for something later, let it ride, let it grow. It's going to go up and down. Don't freak out. Don't panic. And so I think I'm getting a lot of that out of the way, is not being like an emotional investor as far as just like letting it ride out and play. I think that's definitely the biggest thing that I've been learning.
Very good.
The advantages you have, say, Emily, at the beginning of life are you have a very high risk tolerance. If you're 80 to 100% stocks, hopefully 100% actually, and it's a bumpy ride, it's a roller coaster, but you can take on that risk as long as you realize that this money isn't going to be used for 20, 30, 40 years. That's the definition of a long-term investor. So you have the biggest advantage of time, where you have to save less per month, as Jackie said, than when I was a late starter. I had to save thousands and thousands of dollars a month to catch up, because I had lost out on that great advantage of time. And so good for you. And then I did mention that it's a team sport. So say, Emmy, you can put some money in your Roth IRA, and maybe your parents are financially independent. Maybe they don't have to worry about themselves anymore, and they're good with money. It's really good if parents help you transfer wealth and help you max out your Roth 401k if you have the income to max it. And that's what I'm doing with my kids. They put in half, I put in half, because I don't want to let a Roth IRA go empty every year, because you don't get that space back. it's gone after the end of the year. So those are some of the things we thought out. We need to have Emmy ask a question because she hasn't had a chance to ask one in a bit.
Yeah, I was about to say, Emmy, can you read that third questions about when you switch jobs? That was a really good one, I thought. Can you read that question for us?
So what happens if you switch jobs and you have a 401k?
All right, Jackie, you're the CFP. You're the 401k genius. Why don't you take that one on?
Well, I can tell you it doesn't take a CFP to know this. And to you guys, I was looking at a statistic that said these days people switch jobs about 12 times during their career, right? So most employers offer some type of employer-sponsored retirement plan, like a 401k. Britton, your dad, he probably has like a 403b or something like that because it's in education. So when you guys start your professional career, you will have multiple jobs. So the question is, okay, I saved a little money in my retirement account at work. Now what do I do with it? You basically have 3 or 4 different options. You can leave it there if you want to with the company. If you do that, especially while you're young, you may forget about it. Okay. When you go to the next employer, you might be able to roll it to that new employer, but they have to accept it. They don't have to. The IRS allows them to, but they don't have to. The next option is you can roll it over to what's called an individual retirement account that is owned by you. It has nothing to do with employer. A lot of people choose this option because it gives them more control over it. So the other option, which we definitely want people to try to shy away from, is cashing it out. And some employers, like if it's a really small amount, some employers might just cash you out. If you do that, you'll have to pay taxes, possibly penalties. So that's probably the most expensive options. But those are the things that you can consider when you do leave a job. Because again, during your working career, you will have on average 12 different jobs, and you don't want to just forget about that money that belongs to you inside of a 401k or another employer-sponsored plan.
Not all 401ks are created equal. And we gave you a sheet on how to interpret and clean up the mess of a 401k and even understand it, because it's a whole jumble of letters that is really important. When you get your first job, log in. Don't expect that they're going to take care of you. Log in, read the plan, understand it. Set up your auto debit. You may be automatically set up, but you're going to be set up like a 3% rate, and you may want to save more. You're going to have to change that. This is a very important tool for you. And I see a lot of people in their 20s, and I ask them, do you have a 401k? And they say, yeah. And I said, have you logged in? They say, no. They have not logged in. They don't understand it. They haven't looked at it. People stick their heads in the sands and assume it's just going to be okay. Somebody will take care of me. No. You need to control your money. You need to understand it. You need to know what you're invested in. Use Jackie's clean up the 401k mess so that keep it simple. Too. They'll put you in a complicated portfolio. No, you may need just the S&P 500 as one fund, 100% stocks. Keep it simple, and then roll it over. Keep it together. Aggregate your accounts and automate them. Use something to track your money. You got to know where it is and how the money flows, how it's coming in, how it's going out. Because if you don't monitor it with an aggregator, I use Monarch. Monarch supports the show. It's a low-cost membership, but a high-value proposition. So, yeah, monitor it.
And Bill, we had several questions around what you are about to go into about how to manage your 401k. But I want to ask Karen, well, I kind of want to step back for just a second, and we're okay to call you Karen and not Dr. DeLong, right? Okay. So I want to know, like, what even inspired you to teach this personal finance to your ag students? Because this is not your area of teaching, and you did not have a personal finance class. How did that even come about? Because you sound so knowledgeable, and our audience can tell that already. So how did this even happen?
I teach, these students are in my futures and options markets class, which is a very complicated topic. The futures market is hard to teach. And so I start the class by talking about what an exchange is. And stocks are actually way easier to understand than a contract that's for delivery or at a later date. They're actually just contracts that trade on an exchange. So it's a bit of an abstract idea. So I talk about stocks to get them familiarized with how an exchange works. And then after our exam and before spring break, we have a class period. And that's when I have you all come in. And I teach a little crash course on personal finance because we do talk about stocks in the class. That is relevant to the content syllabus of my class. And so because we were talking about the stock market, and we actually, for one of my homework assignments, we also have to teach about fundamental and technical analysis. And I have them apply it not only to the futures contracts they're using for their class project, but also to a stock. So a lot of the topics I teach in futures and options apply to the stock market. I mean, one of the topics I talk about is options on futures contracts, but they're the same on stocks. So talking about stocks makes sense for this class. Fundamental and technical analysis also. This is a very long answer to your question. So it makes sense to talk about investing in my class. And so we do a little crash course on personal finance. I got really interested in it when I started learning more about it after I went to the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders conference, after I just had defended my dissertation, but the Morrison family, Morrison School of Agribusiness at Arizona State, that's where I got my PhD from. They took a group of us, students and professors, to that meeting, and I became obsessed with Warren Buffett. I read his 800-page biography, and then I found out I was teaching this futures and options class when I got this job. So I started reading a bunch of finance books, and then I started investing in the stock market because I needed to know how the exchange works. And then I read a million books, and it was really fascinating. And managing money is really, really important. And so I wanted to give my students that skill, and they already have a jump start on finance from this class and learning about stocks in the class.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. And you went to the Berkshire Hathaway annual meeting, which if you're watching on YouTube, I have a paper share of Berkshire Hathaway stock. So how did you get to go there again? Did you take students with you?
The Morrison family is the family that endowed the Morrison School of Agribusiness at Arizona State. And so Mr. Morrison paid for and took some PhD students, undergrads, and faculty with him and his family to the Berkshire Hathaway annual shareholders meeting. He paid for it all because his family, I mean, they have a Class A share. And so we got to go to all the investing breakout sessions with him because a bunch of finance people, investment groups go there with their clients and have breakout sessions. So we went to his, which was actually an agricultural one because they're farmers in the Phoenix area. And so, I mean, the whole thing was incredible, mind-blowing. I played bridge with Bill Gates while I was there.
Oh my God. Oh, I remember that okay, so this is too much fun. Okay, we're getting off track, but that is so impressive, Karen. So I was just taken with that, but I didn't mean to get us off track. But obviously that had an influence on you to where you were paying it forward.
Yes, big time. If you can give students a skill before they leave college, it should be personal finance. I think it should be one of our general education requirements, a course on it.
Yeah, we agree. Emmy, what did you think about this? Did you think that what she was doing was different? Did you appreciate it? Was it, oh, I just had an exam, it's boring, I'm not going to pay attention? What did you think about this? Were you hungry for this knowledge? You're like, I don't know. This is an easy break.
I really enjoyed it. I was thinking a little bit about how hot it was in the classroom during that, but I did really enjoy that, and I did think it was different because I'm in finance, but I'm not totally into my major courses yet. So it was kind of nice, one, to take this class and kind of get a jump start ahead of where some other people may be, because I told my mom about this class, and she's like, people will study that for years and have no idea what they're talking about. So it's good to get a jump start on it. And then I really appreciated that she brought you guys into the class and also asked for our own questions on it, because some of the questions that people had and some of them that I was reading, I didn't even realize that I did not know, especially about 401ks. After the discussion in class, I actually went home for spring break and I asked my mom about her 401ks and what she did when she was switching jobs. And so she talked to me about her experience with that.
Oh, cool. I'm glad it sparked the conversation about money, and hopefully it sparks the conversation with your peers, because I don't know if you speak with your other kids about money. Britton, you know a lot about money, but what did you get out of the class?
I've really enjoyed the class. It was one of the few classes that I'm taking this semester that I was like really excited to, and truthfully that I haven't either skipped or maybe slept in one day and missed, but so that says something. And then Dr. DeLong teaches it really well. This is definitely a very hard class to learn and to teach. And you could teach it in a way to where it could be a lot of information really fast. And somehow she's been able to give us all this information, but make it really understandable. And, you know, unfortunately, I did not do as well on my first test, as some people in the call. I'm not going to name any names or anything, but I've really enjoyed the class. It's been really cool to learn. It's been really fun.
And then the personal finance kamikaze lightning fire class. What did you think? You already knew some about it, but did we bring up other topics for you that you were like, oh, I need to think about that?
Oh, I loved it. It was awesome. One of my buddies who's in the class with me, I was sitting next to him. He was like, man, I don't know what I'm going to learn out of this. I'm not too excited about it. And I was like, dude, I'm fired up. I was super excited just to get to learn more a little bit about it, which I guess maybe I'm a nerd. I don't know, but I loved it. I thought it was awesome. You guys did a great job, I think, answering our questions and giving a little crash course.
Oh, you're just saying that.
What's interesting is we put this out on our little community, and I've gotten 2 requests from teachers around the country to do the same thing. And so this is something that needs to happen. The teacher needs to take an interest, realize there's a problem, realize there's a need, realize there's a curiosity. And if you get this conversation started early, it changes the trajectory of your life. There are a couple other questions I want to get to before we close, and we have 10 or 12 minutes here. Let's go back to you, Britton, and pick one of those questions. So let's take it on, and so we can spark some more conversations and interest.
Well, and we're jumping around a little bit, but I kind of have one that I was curious about that comes up a lot. And even for older people, I numbered them. So sorry, we're jumping around, but I numbered them. It's number 8 that talks about being frugal and trying to balance it. Can you ask us that question? And maybe we can all chat about that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. What is a good balance between saving my money and being too frugal?
Well, let me turn that back on you right away and say, what do you think?
Oh, goodness. This is actually something I've battled with being in college. I realized last semester I was saving, which honestly, it sounds weird to be like I was saving way too much, but I was saving way too much to the point to where when it got to like, I wouldn't go eat out with my friends because I wouldn't want to dip into my savings and like pull that money out. And so this is something I've actually had to battle with this year is like, what am I willing to give up out of my savings so that I can have a little bit better, just, balance in my life. So that's been an interesting thing for me to figure out this semester.
All right. And before we comment, I want to hear what Emmy has to say about this.
I've actually been dealing with that this semester. I've had to start saying no to going with people because I did it a little bit too much and did not catch myself before I needed to stop because I don't want to dip into my savings account. And I'm just like, I'm not willing to spend it on a bagel. So I've been having to say no.
Oh, this is called the latte factor. And there's a famous guy, David Bach, that's written a book on this. Jackie, this is a hot topic in the financial independence. And it's an ongoing conversation because what's popularized in the media is the 30-something engineer that retires at 30 with $1 million. That is rare. That's sensational. And I love the fact, Britton, that you said balanced, because balance is critical on this journey. This is a lifelong journey. And you don't want to eat rice and beans just to get to $1 million, but you don't want to miss out on your friend's wedding either. And you've got to decide, are the experiences important? You spend money on a thing, there are things that you need, but then there are things that you want that you don't really need. So understanding your needs and wants plays into the difference between frugal and cheap, and then not saving anything. Jackie, what are your thoughts on this frugal, cheap, and over-saving phenomenon that Britton's struggling with, and where he's saying he's not going out with his friends because it's going to cost money?
Yeah, I think it's kind of something that's ingrained in us. Like maybe your parents or the household or whatever your environment was, that's what you saw. And it's hard to see that and be able to distinguish and come up with what the right balance is. And the main thing I defer to is that if it hurts so much, being frugal or whatever, then that's probably gone a little too far and you will not stick with it. So think about what you will stick with. Like Emmy, you was talking about like the bagel. If you don't even like bagels that great and it's okay, then you'll stick with that because you don't really care. However, Britton, if it was a cup of Starbucks coffee, whatever your favorite coffee is, you start that every morning, it energizes you, you're ready to go, and you would not be on a 10 unless you had that coffee, then you shouldn't give it up. And so you stick with that, and that's okay. But I feel like sometimes people over frugal in a way that they cannot stick with, and it's unrealistic. And you will find that out very quickly. So that's my thought. I'm wondering what Karen thinks.
I spend way too much money because, I mean, you only live once. So it's tough. It is a balance. If I could just, I mean, I should be saving probably more, but it's easy to spend money right now because I have 2 kids. But before I had 2 kids, I was really, really, really frugal. I saved a lot. And I was always really, really cheap. I mean, my husband will tell you I'm so cheap. So I actually was a big saver too, but I was really, really fortunate because my parents gave me a head start with the whole no debt thing when I graduated from college. So I feel spoiled in this situation.
The important thing here for me is the mindset. Okay. You got to understand your values. If you guys gave me your credit card bill or your statement, I could tell what's important to you. Okay. Every dollar gets a job. You can either buy your freedom with it, a thing, an experience, and you're much better off spending money on experiences than things. There are things we need to a point, but you don't want to let it get excessive, because what are you going to take with you? The memories. There's a fantastic book that talks about die with zero and spend your money while you're alive within reason, because there are memory dividends. That's an investment in a friendship. That's an investment in an experience with your friend on vacation, spring break, for example. Not all a bad thing. But give the dollars a job and look at the power it has to buy financial independence. We spend too much time buying things. And then you wonder, where did that money go? And that's what happened in my life, overdoing it with houses and cars. And there is something called just big enough, just enough. You got to know you're enough and understand your needs and your wants. And it's okay to be different. It's okay to be weird, because the average American is a late starter. Your peers probably aren't talking about it. I don't know. What do you think? Are they talking about money? Do they want to hear it from you? Or are they just, blasé, it'll take care of itself one day? Emily, what do you think?
I think I definitely met a handful of people both ways while being at school. In high school, I never really heard anyone talk about it because everyone approached the personal finance class the same way as I did. And I think everyone else does, where it's just kind of the thing you go to and do something else. But in college, I'd say it kind of depends who I've met and whether they're paying for their school or if someone else is covering their school for them or how their expenses are handled. But I've definitely kind of seen both experiences in people.
Britton, what do you think?
Yeah, I would say really the exact same thing. I think a lot of times it comes down to, truthfully, how they're funding being there. You know, I see most of the time, if someone isn't too worried about finances, is going out and just spending a whole bunch of money. A lot of times they have their college paid for. They're not really worried about it. It's just like kind of something they'll think about later, opposed to the kid who's working during school, trying to pay off college. I see them being a lot more just thoughtful with their money and where their money goes to, definitely.
Do they think you're weird because of all that you do with money? Do you feel that they say, what are you doing? Why are you doing this? Are you just weird?
I definitely get some smack talk out of my buddies whenever I won't go out or I won't do this just because I don't want to spend money, but definitely get some of that.
Well, all I can say, down the road, Britton will be getting all the ladies, okay? But I do want to spotlight something that Karen said, because as people, if they have started accumulating a lot of money and they have trouble spending, okay, they will say, how do I turn on the spending switch? I've been saving and hoarding all this time. I've oversaved. And the thing that I tell them is exactly what Karen said. Or I don't know if you knew how important that was, but I always tell them, if you have trouble spending, think about who you love and what you love. So Karen, you were frugal before you had your kids. And once you had your kids, you loosened up the purse strings and you started spending more money on those kids because that meant something to you.
Also, it's a bit of survival. We don't have family in town, so we need babysitters to survive. And we sometimes need DoorDash to survive. So part of it's just surviving.
All those conveniences are important.
Yeah, we haven't talked to Emmy and Britton about life with kids. We don't need to scare you yet.
Right. We'll just talk about the beautiful part, because they are the next generation. They are who we're thinking about, once we've got ourselves together.
So yeah, are there any final questions you guys might have for us before we close the show? We've talked about a lot. There's so much more to talk about, but the whole point of this today is to light the fire, create a spark, show that you're interested so that other folks should be interested, and the kids of late starters should start asking their parents. They're recovering from what they saw. It isn't necessarily what you learned in school or didn't learn in school. You're watching as you grow up. Look at this is how they handle money or somebody else handles money. And there may be a lot of bad habits that are created. And you can help the kids that aren't talking about money recover from those bad habits before they become a big problem, because those will compound into what we call lifestyle inflation, and it gets away from you. So any final questions you guys have for us today or thoughts?
Eva, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any more.
We've picked her brain enough. But I think it's really important to acknowledge that, people have an attention span that's only so long, especially when we get this opportunity, Bill, to be in front of young people. We have to keep the energy going. It cannot go on forever, because at some point, their brain is on overload. We've probably thrown a lot, and for anyone else that is going to school or something like that, you want to be mindful that these are new things that they are learning, and overload happens really, really fast. But we're just honored that you guys took the time to chat with us today, answered all of our crazy questions, asked us a few questions. Bill and I really do enjoy it. And Karen, I wanted to make sure you mentioned the organization that supports us coming in and talking about personal finance. Can you tell us the name of that organization again?
Thank you. It's Farm Credit Mid-America. And so they have a Farm Credit Mid-America enrichment program that contributes money to experiential learning opportunities for our Herbert College of Agriculture students. And so they provided funding to bring you guys to the campus to talk to our students about personal finance.
Yeah.
All right. I have a question for each of you before we close. We handed out 30 16-page books, titled If You Can by a famous guy named William Bernstein. Have either of you read them yet?
Now, why are you putting them on the spot, Bill?
Or are you going to read them?
I started to.
Karen started to.
It's on my list. I have a book I'm reading right now, and it's next up.
I've got it packed in my bag for my airplane ride, so.
Oh, perfect. Anybody can read 16 pages. Nobody reads books anymore, but I'm trying. I'm a book guy.
Here's my tip. He is a reader. What I did, I highlighted the whole book and I said, read this to me. And it read it to me, because I learn better and retain things better by listening versus reading. So Bill is a reader. I'm a listener. So if you happen to be a listener, that's a great thing to listen to.
Let's close with final resources for those folks out there, because it only takes 2 or 3 resources to really take action and get started. If You Can is a great resource. It's 16 pages. The Simple Path to Wealth is a very famous book by the godfather, J.L. Collins, who's been on our podcast. And by the way, our podcast is not just for late starters. At our breakout in economy, a conference, we had a late starter that was 24 years old.
Yeah.
And then we had a late starter that was 70 years old. And I took a picture of them next to each other. And I asked the 24-year-old, why are you here? What brings you here? And he said, you know what? The older folks have a lot of wisdom. They've made a lot of mistakes. And I want to learn what not to do as much as I want to learn what to do. And if you reverse engineer this process and harvest the wisdom, not of books, not necessarily a podcast, but the people that will help you, that we want to help you, it's a gift to help somebody with their money and change a young person's life. So reach out to people too, I would say, not just the traditional book, podcast, blog, learning. What do you think, Jackie? What are some resources you might throw out there for people?
Yeah, I think you mentioned some really good ones. I like the If You Can by Bill Bernstein because it's so short. I wrote a little book called Money Letters to My Daughter that I actually wrote to my daughter that was a teenager. So that's a good one. And this book behind me, Fire for Dummies, I really break it down. So it's like, you didn't purposely throw this at me to pitch it. But here's the better advice that I give you. Figure out how you learn the best. Because someone that's telling you read this book and that book, if you're not a reader like that, like me, I'm not going to read it. Okay. So do you like to learn from YouTubes? Do you like to learn from listening to podcasts? Do you like to learn from social media, TikTok, short little videos? Figure that out first and then find the right content creator from there, because that way you will do it. Anyone that has ever told me, go read this book. So Bill, if you've told me that, I probably didn't go read it. Maybe I'll listen to them on a podcast or YouTube or something like that. So that's my best advice, because there's a lot of great stuff. Everything that you mentioned, they do have content that's on other platforms besides just a book.
And it isn't just about investing. The one other book I want to suggest from the godmother of finance, because women in this industry have a lot of great ideas too and are the leaders in some ways of the financial future, is Vicki Robin. She's now 80 years old. Back in the 90s, she wrote a book called Your Money or Your Life.
Iconic.
And it's the balance thing. Are you going to focus on money or are you going to focus on your life? And it's not about the numbers in that book. It's about the values. It's about the mindset. It's about balance. You were looking for a book about balance. So The Simple Path to Wealth, Your Money or Your Life, if you can. And that will take you down a rabbit hole of lifelong learning, as Jackie says, that will never end. I love learning about money. I will be learning about money until I die because there's always something new to learn. Jackie, close us out with our tagline, please.
Yeah, you're a lifelong learner. I wanted to give Karen an opportunity. We appreciate you so much for joining us today, for bringing Britton and also Emmy. This was so great. So why don't you leave us with a few words?
I forgot to mention when you're asking why I talk about this topic in class, I figure one of the better ways to motivate students is, do you want to have money? Do you want to build wealth? Do you want to be wealthy when you grow up? And a good way to do that is to be frugal and understand how to invest because of the power of compound interest. And then the other thing I just wanted to mention, you all mentioned a lot of resources. When I teach, I try to be really applied with my educational approach. So I encourage students to actually get an app, get a brokerage account, figure out how to open a Roth IRA, and figure out how to trade stocks. You just got to get in and do it and learn how to use all of that software. Because sometimes, just like when we were at lunch, Bill, you were like, are you invested in the proper funds for your retirement account? And I was like,
I didn't think we were going there today.
And so I just handed you my phone and made you show me how to get in the right accounts on my retirement account. So actually just going in and doing these things, like Emmy, just go open a Roth IRA. Just go do it and put a tiny bit of money in it. Just get it started. Jump in.
Yeah, that's hilarious. Jackie and I get these questions, and it's very interesting to touch somebody else's money. But you were very trusting, and you're very risk tolerant. And we were making changes on the fly that you were like, "Yeah, let's do it." And the market's gone down since then, but you're not worried about it, right? Because this is money that's in there for the long term.
That long-term retirement. So Fritz is our editor. So Fritz, we're going to close this out a little different. So I will do our closing sign off, which is always remember, it's never too late to start. It's better late than never. It's always a great time to catch up to 5. And then I'm going to say, Britton and Emily, why don't you guys close us out? So Emmy, you will say, we'll catch you next week. And Britton, you will say on catching up to 5. So normally Bill says, and we'll catch you next week. That'll be Emily. And then on catching up to 5, that'll be you, Britton. And that'll be like the end of it. So what do you think, Bill?
That's fine. I think the young adults should close out this show.
This was extraordinary. We were so honored to have you guys on to try to have this frank conversation. We want to encourage all of our listeners to get involved with high schools, colleges. What you know can be shared with so many other people. You are learning a lot. So we definitely want to impact the next generation. We're not perfect, okay? Sometimes we might get stared at or confused or whatever, but at least just start and make an attempt. So we're going to just leave the show saying, always remember, for our late starters, it's never too late to start. It's better late than never. And it's always the right time to catch up to 5.
We'll see you next week.
On catching up to 5. Go Vols.
Go Vols! So, Bill, as you know, we cannot do this show without our amazing staff and the people that help us put this on. And our editor is Fritz Brazard. We love them and they keep us going.
Yeah, Jackie, this show wouldn't have the quality it has without our folks, our peeps. And we'd also like to give you a few calls to action for the show. We love our community and we hope you love us back. If you would like to support the show and our mission to help late starters, you can do that at Buy Me a Coffee, which is a platform that allows you to make a donation. The link is in the show notes and on the website.
Check out the show notes for resources mentioned in today's show. Also, head on over to our website at catchinguptofy.com and check out our vetted resources, partners, and affiliates for discounts and their services because we love sharing great deals.
Please share the show with others and head on over to our Facebook community to help us grow. If you prefer video, head on over to YouTube and watch the show there. We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Catching Up to Fi. We would appreciate it if you could also leave us a 5-star review to help our message reach others.
And while we are financial educators that love to teach, remember that our content is for general education and information purposes only. We are not providing financial, legal, or tax advice. Always do your own research or consult a professional before making important decisions.
So, Jackie, we'll see our audience next time on Catching Up to Fi. Cheers.